Good morning, folks. It's Sunday, December 7th. Welcome to Commissioner in a Car. Let's Talk Manual Recounts edition. I'm Dustin Zarni, Democratic Elections Commissioner for Onondaga County. And first off, go Bills. Big Sunday for the Bills, taking on Cincinnati. This could be a big game. It could be the difference between possibly getting a home playoff game or catching New England, or maybe not making the playoffs at all. So go Josh Allen, go Bills. All right, now let's get into it. So this edition of Commissioner in a Car, I'm going to really dive into what goes into a manual recount. We just finished a few, and that's what the topic of this Commissioner in a Car will be. But first, let's look back at what we did this last week at the Onondaga County Board of Elections. We came back from Thanksgiving break, and we did do the manual counts. A little bit about that in a second, but also we started proofing the write-ins for final certification. So when we went to Thanksgiving break, we did our certification to the state, which certified all the winners, but we hadn't done the write-ins yet. No write-ins were, no writing contests were in danger of surpassing the recorded ballots. So they kind of get put to the back burner. They're the last thing we do. And that's what we started this week. And next week's Commissioner Carr, I plan on going into what we do with write-ins because those will be published on, I believe, either Monday or Tuesday with our final results at onvote.net. And then we also started processing our mail check cards, or our and some of our return mail. So by law, on June 1st, if we get mail back after June 1st, or if we got it back before then, but we were unable to process it, which a lot of times happens because we send out our mail check cards to every voter in Onondaga County in May. Sometimes we get some of those back late, or we get a whole bunch back and we're just not able to process it before June 1st. Then we have to hold those mail check cards to process those until after the general election. So, and what do I mean by process? Well, if you get a returned piece of mail with the Board of Elections, we actually look at the voter registration, and if it says you've moved, we will update your address. But if it says that, it doesn't have a forwarding address for you, then we're supposed to inactivate you. So your registration goes from active to inactive. That doesn't mean you can't vote. You can. If you show up at a polling place, you'll be asked to vote by affidavit. And then we will reactivate you based on the information that you put on the affidavit ballot. Well, we had about 8,000 or so mail check cards that came back. We send them out to 320,000 voters. 8,000 of them came back undeliverable. We started going through those and inactivating voters after the general election, and we make sure that A, they didn't update their registration between June and now, and also B, that they didn't vote. Because if they voted, then that's an affirmation that they do live at the address that they said they were at. So those are the two things we look at. We started processing those. We actually dropped our voter rolls by about 5,000 voters in about a week doing that. I got to say, our voter rolls at the Onondaga County Board of Elections are probably the most accurate they've ever been because of the extra processing power we have with the extra people that were added on this year. We've been able to get to a lot of stuff in a quicker time frame. So I'm really happy with that. So that's what we did at the Board of Elections. Then, of course, we did the hand count. And the hand count, we had two races that had the manual hand count. The Onondaga Town Council race, the second spot, Ellen Magnarelli won the first spot pretty handily, but the second spot was between Lisa Goodwin and Martin Brown. Lisa Goodwin ended up winning that race by 7 votes out of 6,000 votes cast. So that's quite quite close, but that is what is there. And then the Solvay 3rd Ward trustee, there was about 600 votes cast and 13 votes separating them on election night. Normally that would not be a hand count, but because it's under 20 votes, we have to hand count it anyways. And we did. And unfortunately, William McVicker lost that race. By the 13 votes, there was no change in that race. And Kathleen Marinelli Browse won the Solvay 3rd Ward trustee. That is actually the only race in Onondaga County where an incumbent Democrat or a seat held by a Democrat was lost to a Republican in all of Onondaga County in 2026. So, I'm sorry, 2025. So, we talked about how well the Democrats did in 2025. That's the button to that. It doesn't mean that Democrats didn't lose races. They did, but they lost races where they were challenging Republican rule. And the only race where a Republican won, where a Democrat was sitting in it, was this race right here. So that kind of leads me into the topic for this week's Commissioner Carr and the manual hand count law, and why we do it, when we do it, and what goes into it. So a little history on this. In the manual hand count has been in place in Ulster County and in New York City for a long time, but it was not in place statewide until 2021. In 2020, in the budget of 2020, then Governor Cuomo insisted to bring the statewide, or bring the manual count law in New York City statewide. I actually think that's a good thing. I would like to tweak the law, and I'll go into that in a little bit, but I'm glad it's here. It is more work for us, but before then, if we had a close contest, whether it was 1 vote or 10 votes or whatever, there was no looking at the ballots to make sure that the machines counted the correct number of votes. And this law means that a close contest, and they define close contest as any race where the difference between the winner or the loser is 0.05% of the ballots cast or 20 votes. Then the ballots are then physically examined and hand counted by the Board of Election staff, the bipartisan staff, and also observers can come in and challenge. It's the last vestige of, a lot of people are remembering the old absentee counting where, now we count those absentees before Election Day, but the old absentee counts where they could come in and challenge absentees regardless of how close the race was. That is no longer the case because those are counted before Election Day, and the challenges are left to the truly close races, which makes it easier for the boards of elections to obviously do what we do, but also and count the race, but also it doesn't subjugate voters to ridiculous challenges before Election Day, and it's done after Election Day when the and only in the races that are close. So why do we do it? Are the machines accurate? Well, yes, the machines are. And in fact, of the hand counts that we've done, we have seen that the machines are incredibly accurate. We had a 10-vote race for John Mannion in SD 50 in 2022, and that was 130,000 votes between 2 different counties. It was a 10-vote race and was upheld that he did win that race. And then we had a county clerk race in 2023 with Emily Essie, now Emily Bersani. She's the Democratic county clerk. There was a couple hundred votes separating her and Lisa Dell on Election Day. And that was 90,000 ballots that we examined in 2023. And in those, we saw that the machines are really good at counting these votes. They're very, very accurate. Where the differences come about is human error. And things that the machines can't pick up on because the person did not necessarily either fill in the bubble all the way or they put a faint line through the bubble. Those are votes that that are sometimes not caught in the counting of the hand count. Now, at the Onondaga County Board of Elections, because we've gone through these big 90,000 plus hand counts. In fact, the John Mannion SD50 race is the race that I think most of the state goes by in terms of what is a valid vote and what isn't. We have certain rules that we use for our bipartisan teams to count votes. Basically, if a mark starts inside the oval and goes out, it's counted. If it's outside of the oval, if there's a mark on the ballot, then the commissioners have to make a ruling on voter intent. So, having these rules in place, we don't invalidate ballots for stray marks or food stains or things like that, because this is what the judge has said to us in the past, that can't be done. We also do invalidate ballots that have intentional marks. So writing, signing a ballot, these are the kind of things that will invalidate a ballot. So these are the kind of things that we're looking for in a hand count that will either invalidate a ballot or count an extra vote. So, in the case of Martin Brown and Lisa Goodwin in Onondaga Town Council, there was actually some movement. On election night, it was 15 votes, and it closed down to 7 by election by the hand count. But that is not that big of a movement if you think about there were 6,000 votes cast, 6,000 ballots cast, but because it was a vote for 2, 12,000 votes cast. So, 8 votes movement there out of 6,000. Obviously, that's not a lot. It's a hyper small percentage. And that really is a testament to the clear ballot machines that we have. Also, the Solvay Third Ward one did not change at all. And I kind of expected that because there was only 600 or so votes in that, and 600 or so ballots, and it's a vote for one. There's less chance of a mistake in a vote for one. So those came out exactly the way it was. So, when that law changed in 2020, it was funny because it was on the books, but it wasn't effective yet. And many of you may remember that there was the old New York 22, the Anthony Brindisi Claudia Tenney race, which came down to just a couple of a dozen ballots out of another 130,000 ballots. They were not able to do the hand count on ballots because those ballots were not part of the hand count because the law wasn't effective till 2021. So it was really kind of the case of why we need it. I'm not saying that Mr. Brindisi would have won, but I think there would have been a little bit more of a surety by the voters that the correct outcome had been done in that case. Because if you remember, there was a lot of issues with ballots that were misfiled and ballots that were and registrations that weren't done and all of these things that were there. So and a manual examination of all the ballots would have at least when it's that close, give some assurity to the loser that, I say that word, there's no, and nobody's a loser because just putting yourself out there to run for office, it's a hard thing to do. But the person who lost the race can be assured that they won. And in fact, Rebecca Shuroff in the John Mannion SD50 race lost by 10. And once we got done with the court case and there were some challenges, but it didn't get done until December 21st, she was satisfied that, she wasn't satisfied that she lost, but she was satisfied that the voters' intent was given. So that is important. So that is why we do these manual counts. There's really not a lot of places where leads have changed. They really have to be close where leads are going to change. As you can see, with the Martin Brown, Lisa Goodwin race, just 8 vote, changes between now and election day, and with that hand count out of 6,000, and a change in the law, maybe make it really kind of focus on the hyper close races. the suggestion, the Board of Elections, all of the Democratic and Republican elections commissioners have offered, and there's a bill by Senator Cooney out there that reduces the hand count to 0.25% instead of 0.5% and 10 votes instead of 20, and then allows for an alternative scan for those other ones between 0.25 and 0.5%. That's actually modeled after the Florida hand count law that was put in place after the debacle of the 2000 election, which I actually think, it's very rare I'm going to say this, but I think that's an actual good law by by Florida. Actually, Florida has some decent election laws. They just have some really bad practices with their legislature. But that, and some of their voter registration purging that I don't like. But in terms of actually counting the vote, Florida actually has some really good election laws. Because of the 2000 debacle. So that's the kind of changes that we think would make it easier. And so a race like the county clerk race that we did in 2023, that probably should not have been a hand count. The Solvay Third Ward race that we did this year probably should not have been a hand count. Did it cost us a lot of time and money on the Solvay one? No. But the county clerk one was countywide, and that took us about a week and a half to get through. So that's a lot of time and money that is being spent on a race that is not going to flip. And that's the reason we do these hand counts, is while we all want to get to the exact vote count in every race, when it's obvious who has won, that's really what we're trying to find out, is who won the race, not exact vote counts. In terms of, or otherwise we would have to hand count every ballot on every race. And that's unfortunately what's happening out in Rensselaer County right now, but that's because of a machine issue, not because of an accuracy issue. So it was a programming issue. That was a whole different thing. So we're, that's one of the reasons that's one of the things that we, both Democratic and Republican elections commissioners would like to see done with this manual hand count, and I think then we would really be focused on the races that are very close. But that being said, the Martin Brown race, that was the Onondaga Town Council race, obviously that's a perfect example of why the hand count is needed, why we were able to come up with a final number and be done with it. So what's coming this week? Well, as I said, we haven't gotten done with the write-ins. They were a little bit more complicated. We had we had to do the hand count. That took a day away from us. And then we lost a day or two on, we had system issues at the Onondaga County, had a countywide IT network issues that were hurting us Tuesday and going into Wednesday. So that put us a little bit behind. We tried to catch up on Thursday and Friday, but it wasn't quite done. So we are going to be done with this on Monday. That's the proofing of the write-ins. And again, next week on Commissioner and Carl, I'll go into what goes into that and why it takes a little bit more time than just publishing all the names, which we could do, but that's not our policy at the Onondaga County Board of Elections, because what we're trying to publish is true and accurate votes. And not flippant votes for people that are not eligible to receive them. So we'll go over that in next week's Commissioner in the Car. Registration, the mail checks are continuing. We've actually got done with all the mail checks. We're still doing some return mail. There's about 1,000 or so pieces of mail that were returned between now and June 1st, so that we are going through to reactivate those voters. We are going to restart registration. Registration has been on pause since the 10th day before the election, because you weren't able to register to vote or change your address at that time. Some of those were handled in the 690 or so affidavits that we processed on election day, but any new registrations have not been processed since then. We're going to restart that. And so we're going to be doing that. That's really going to be our month of December, is catching up on registration and finishing up all these inactives that we have to do. I am going to New York City this week. I'm going to be a part of a cybersecurity panel. Senator Gillibrand is hosting a symposium with Common Cause about cybersecurity and the need for cybersecurity in elections. And I happen to be in the closing panel along with Ben Spear, the head of cybersecurity for New York State Board of Elections. So I'm really excited about that. It's obviously a great opportunity to talk about the need for funding, federal funding, as well as the need for all the other things that we need with the board, and also learn, because I'm part of one panel, but it's a whole day symposium, so I'm really excited to learn all about it as well. So I'm going down there. That is on Thursday, and then I will be. Hopefully on Wednesday, before I leave, I'm driving down on Wednesday, I'll be relaunching my weekly walk. Those of you may remember, up until about August of 2024, I was doing a weekly blog post called The Weekly Walk on my website, but because of the registration issue in 2024 and the incredibly busy election season it was, I had put that on pause. I've released a few weekly walks since then, mainly around the general election of 2024 and the primary of 2025, just to get some of the important data. But a lot of the enrollment data that I used to dive into, I kind of put on pause. 2025 was a weird year. I had a lot of new staff and a lot of new positions, and a new fellow commissioner that we were kind of figuring things out as we went all year long. There was a lot of changes in personnel and changes in duties, and my focus had been there this year. But I feel very confident that I can re-add this along with the commissioner in a car going forward. So I'm going to try to start that. I'm going to start with a 2-part recap of the general election. First one is about overall turnout, and the second one is about how we voted in terms of what method we voted. I'll also then do so that'll be coming this Wednesday, and also then on Wednesday the 17th, and then the Wednesday before Christmas, I will do a how Democrats did in 2025, and that will be the end of my looking back at 2025. And when the new year comes, I'll be doing about the enrollments for all the races that are that will be contested. That's my goal. All the races that will be contested in 2026, starting with a look at Onondaga County as a whole. And one of the new things, I've been kind of like, I've been doing this for a few years, and some of the things haven't changed. But one of the new things I'm going to be bringing to the weekly walk, including these first ones, is I'm going to bring age groups into it. That's a data set I haven't looked at yet. I've been able to do that by our new voter registration system, NTS, that we put in place in the middle of 2024. They're really good at being able to give me a little bit of data that I wasn't able to get out of other stuff. So in the age group data is really easy to do. So it's not easy, but it's easier than it was before. So I'm happy to put out some of that data on age ranges and how age groups turned out and why it's so important. And then I'm going to be adding that as a data variable in my weekly walks going forward into 2025. So, and into 2026, end of 25 into 26. So that's all I got. As always, follow along at DustinZarni.com. You can subscribe and get an email notification every time I do an update. You can also go to all of my social media feeds. Just look for Dustin Zarni on anything. I think I'm on YouTube. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, X, Blue Sky, Snapchat, Threads, Instagram. Follow me wherever you like, and I'll be trying to be as comprehensive as possible when it comes to doing the job that I love doing. So thank you very much, and enjoy your week or the end of your weekend, and go Bills. Bye-bye.